Optimove, the leader in positionless marketing, frees marketing teams from the limitations of fixed roles, boosting campaign efficiency by 88%. Its positionless marketing platform delivers 3 transformative powers: data power for real-time customer insights, creative power for instant asset creation, and optimization power for self-optimizing campaigns. With Optimove, you can do anything and be everything. Go to optimove.com/totalretail to get your first month free when buying Optimove's positionless marketing platform.
Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Total Retail Talks. I'm Joe Keenan, the editor-in-chief of Total Retail. I'm here at Shoptalk Fall in Chicago, and I'm pleased to be joined on today's episode by Kaitlyn Hebert, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of Ninja. Kate's going to be presenting on a session here later this afternoon, and we're going to talk to her about that and all things Ninja. So, Kate, thanks for joining me on today's show.
Thank you for having me.
So, as I noted, you're speaking here at Shoptalk, and you're going to talk about the execution at the speed of light, I believe is the one of the terms used. So, with that in mind, can you talk a little bit about the structural alignment at Ninja and the changes that you made to enable the brand to be able to move from idea to market faster than many other traditional consumer brands?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to the way that we have built our innovation hub. We have a chasing the sun model. So you've got engineers and innovation happening all the way from China to London to New York and Boston. So by the time I wake up, there's a new idea. By the time I go to bed, that idea is already refined and polished. So our innovation model, I think, is what gives us edge and speed. And then I think from a marketing perspective, as the innovation turns into a prototype that turns into another prototype that gets into market, the marketing job is how do we also prototype stories at the speed of the product? We want to be able to influence the product the way the product influences the story. So at Ninja, our job is every time we see a product, we feel a product, we get the insights on that prototype. Our job is to keep refining the story in parallel. If we were to kind of wait for that prototype to be perfect and refined, we'd already lose the opportunity to influence change. So our job is to run at the speed in which the innovation in the product does. And I think, again, that's what builds these amazing stories. The product is truly 5-star in every home. So the innovation and the storytelling is really our competitive advantage.
So I'd love for you to maybe share an example with the audience, and you could talk about what the work you and your team have done that led to kind of that sprint mentality from concept of the product to then the campaign, and talk a little bit about what made that possible as well.
Yeah, I think a really good example is actually the Ninja Crispy. So it's one of our new glass air fryers. We just launched in the US, we launched it about a year ago, and most recently launched this over in Europe. And it was really interesting. I can reflect back on the moment we were getting ready for, like, what's the next innovation in cooking? Everyone during COVID had a pressure cooker, everyone had an air fryer and an oven, like, what's next? And so we went through a lot of different consumer insights and trends and understood as people are getting ready to go back to the office and trying to get back to what was life before COVID, we wanted to find a way to intercept that. And that was a trend that was happening globally. So I remember sitting in a room, and one of the things that we do at Ninja is what we call hacks, where we get engineering, design, culinary, social, creative marketing. And we went in a room and we said, well, where do we go with this insight and this new chapter of life for so many people? And then how do we think about what happens next in cooking? So I remember leaving this hack, and there was a Post-it note of an idea. It was just a yellow square, and it was up on the wall, and you could just picture what it would be the next day. And so we took that sticky note, and I remember the engineering team taking what looked to be a hairdryer and an air fryer and putting it together, and you could picture what it was going to come to life and be. And that's because we had the insights, we had the innovation, we had the ideation. There was no swim lanes. Everybody got in a room and everybody just wanted to figure out, where do we go next? So from that yellow Post-it note to when it hit the shelf was about 12 months. So when you think about something that didn't have an identity to being on the shelf and being a global sensation in 12 months, it's pretty remarkable. And that took a lot of due diligence on how do we think about launching a new form of cooking? How do we educate people in every market? How do we bring it to life to the French consumer differently than the German consumer, than the US consumer? But it was all stemming off this need of people are looking for cleaner cooking options. People want to be able to make the most use of their ingredients at home, less waste, more sustainability. And that stayed true no matter how fast we moved, no matter the pivots that we had to take. So it was really remarkable to see. And I go back and I can still picture that yellow sticky note, and I can still picture the engineering team walking in with a prototype at the end of the day being like, what did we just do? Yeah. So
that's a great example. I'm actually going to have a follow-up for you real quickly on those hacks. How frequently are those taking place? And does one team kind of own that, or everyone kind of, to your point, has their own lane, and then the marching orders walking out of that room is marketing is going to be working on this, innovations on this, products on this. Tell us a little bit about how you keep that clean.
Yeah, I think it always starts messy, but that's the best part, right? Is that you get everybody in a room and everybody's responsible for ideating. So no one's precious about ideas. Everyone challenges one another to unlock something new. We all kind of own the same outcome. And what I love about it is on Ninja, we've got a team of culinary chefs that are helping us from a research perspective. We've got engineers that love to really get in the kitchen with us. I've got a creative team that's working with us and understanding the product. So we all get in a room. And I think one of the things that SharkNinja and Ninja does very well is this idea of problem solving, of we all are accountable and responsible for solving a problem. So I wouldn't say anyone's going in being I own it and I lead it. We're all owning the outcome together. And then I think walking away, everybody understands the interdependencies of each decision. So if the culinary team decides that the product can do X, Y, and Z, and the engineering team says, okay, but the trade-offs are, here's the trade-offs in order to do that. And the marketing team at the center helping to chair how we pivot and learn and grow. So I think at the end of the day, everyone walks out with their clear work streams. But I think we're very focused on how do we make sure the interdependencies of those decisions are communicated before we walk out that door.
So we've talked a little bit about the rapid speed in which you're operating at Ninja. With that in mind, how do you ensure that, and I'll talk, in your world, the marketing world, that you're delivering that level of brand consistency, you're obviously achieving ROI goals while moving so quickly, right? You don't want to cut corners and miss things. So talk a little bit about speed, but also the quality of the work, and you're delivering on the goals at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think a lot of what we're trying to do in the marketing team here at Ninja is, as we're getting ready to go to market, how do we have the consumer at the forefront of everything we do? And a lot of the work that we're doing from a marketing and campaign perspective is social-led and social first. So we're mining trends across each of our markets and really understanding what is that red thread. So if I'm going to go to market and we're going to go spend millions of dollars across the world, how do we make sure that we're really clear of what is that global hook, that global red thread that every market can build that brand and the campaign around? And then what we do from there is ideate, well, then what are the local storylines that have to be nuanced and localized to resonate with that consumer? So the way we think about the food differently in Germany and how consumers interact with it will vary from the UK and from France. And so we really do a lot of due diligence upstream on that global creative platform, that red thread, all stemming from consumer insights, social behaviors, trends. And then how do we start to ideate and localize different storylines to come to life? And what I love about it is this is my time to prototype. This is my time to then say, all right, let's go test 20 different assets, 20 different creative executions of that story to see how it resonates in every market. And I think that's where we're not going to get married to a single idea and a single message and a single brief. I want to go test and learn and go broad, so then that way we can really understand how do we double down when we're in market and we're live.
So I believe you said leading with social first, right? So I want to follow up there. Social's been a channel that you're using to build brand awareness. You want to create engagement through the social platforms in which you're creating content on. Tell us a little bit about the consumer and what you're learning from the content that you're producing on social and how that's creating that engagement with the brand.
Yeah, I think what we've learned so far and what continues to evolve is really balancing this functional and emotional connection with each of the products on social media. So how do we make sure that we can allow the consumer to understand why each product is solving a different need, and how do we make sure we're communicating that? So we got to get like the function out there, because there's an unmet need that we have to communicate, but then how do we bring the personality and that emotional connection with it? And I think that's what social media does so well, is you have so many different audiences and creators and trends that allow people to form different emotional connections. And our job is to make sure, as we think about the social creators and the content, how do we use different strategies and different executions to connect back on that unmet need? And I think the Ninja Creamy is like one of those examples where if you put it on paper and you just say, I'm an ice cream maker, what is that solving? But when we really dig deep on understanding, actually, we're building a personalized system for people. So as their health and lifestyle and day evolves, we can evolve with it. And how do we make sure that we change that narrative of like treats used to be indulgent and had like this negative connotation, but between social media and the way that we think about the messaging and creative, we actually enable people to have a treat every day. And it doesn't have to be negative. It actually can be a positive and healthy and different and morning and night. So I think coming full circle is like our job on social media is to make sure our product functionality shines through a really authentic and organic way so people can form those emotional connections, and creators and social is the perfect vehicle for everybody to relate to.
Are there particular platforms that you're leaning into more than others? I would love to learn a little bit about the strategy in terms of where you're distributing that content, and particularly highlighting some of the innovative products that you have.
I think TikTok is where we're spending a bulk of our volume and focus. And I think in particular, it's becoming like a shopping and commerce platform, right? So TikTok Shop is amazing, and it allows people to talk about a product in a very organic way to their audience, and people can relate. And so people are using that not only just from an awareness perspective, but like they are buying. They are seeing people that they look to and connect to, and if they're advocating for the product and can bring different use cases and ideas to those consumers, like that's actually such a powerful tool. So I think from a social commerce perspective, that's a huge area for us. But then I think separately, what we're recognizing is if you can start to catch fire on TikTok, the amount of user-generated content is remarkable. And I love just looking at to see how are people interacting with our products. I go in thinking, oh, this is the way to position a glass air fryer like the Ninja Crispy. This is the way to think about the Ninja Creamy and for ice cream. But when you get it in the hands on TikTok of thousands of people, you actually are like reverse engineering your marketing off of that. You can say, oh my gosh, people are doing so many different things. How do we then take and get inspired by that and help build more content around how they're interacting with the product? So the user-generated piece is remarkable.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that user-generated content. And are you actively reaching out to people? Like, do you work with influencers, or this is just all organic where Ninja customers are just posting on your behalf without even being solicited?
It's a mixture of both. I think for each campaign we hand select content creators in every market. We want to find the person that's authentic to the product and to the brand, but also if we're going to push a product to the markets in the masses, we want to make sure that it's also the right fit for them and their audience. So we basically curate different influencer lists for each of our campaigns. But separately, I think once you start to get that message out there, we start to sell the product, that's where people are coming back and talking about us, talking to us. And so our job is to help amplify their voice. And I think it's really remarkable. That's truly how the Ninja Creamy got to where it was. You know, people were hacking the product and talking about us, and we just watched from afar. We were on the sidelines saying, what do you mean you're putting protein powder in ice cream? What do you mean you're putting gelatin in your ice cream? I mean, now it's cottage cheese. What do you mean you're putting cottage cheese in your ice cream? And so the consumers, I think, obviously resonated to the fact that you can personalize things, but then social media and the way that they talked and built off of one another, they started the community and not us.
That's a great example. Is that content not only on the social channels that Ninja operates, but also on site? Do customers come and look and find that content on your .com site?
Yes, absolutely. So we love to post and repost our content on ninjakitchen.com. So if you're searching for the right frozen treat maker for you, you can see how people are interacting with the product. And we've actually used some of the user-generated content on our TV campaigns across multiple markets because I think the power of seeing people having that emotional connection with our product is so powerful versus spending millions of dollars on a shoot in a campaign. Why not amplify the voices of the people that are using our product that matter? They're the best testimonials, the best use cases of our product. So we've actually worked on building campaigns with all user-generated content. We ran it in North America, we ran it in the UK and France and Germany. And that, to me, I think is just so powerful.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the value of that authentic, honest, user-generated content that you're able to leverage, that's like worth its weight in gold for you, I imagine. When I have people on the podcast, such as yourself, that are leaders of teams, I'd like to get your insight into your leadership approach. And it kind of relates back to what you're talking about today here at Shop Talk in terms of speeding up decision-making and operating potentially with leaner teams as well. So being able to execute quickly and effectively, but also, as we mentioned, not losing sight of that governance that you need, that accountability to the brand. Offer some insights or advice for our audience on how you do that at Ninja.
I love this question. I think the biggest opportunity in my mind is don't get paralyzed by the data. So data is so powerful, but if it's overanalyzed, it's going to start to paralyze decision making. And so a lot of what we pride ourselves in at SharkNinja is this progress versus perfection mindset. I understand that it can be hard, right? You want to feel confident before you spend millions of dollars on a product or a campaign and before we go put this out in the marketplace. But our job is to build hypotheses and test and learn and pivot. And so if we waited for all the stars to align, every piece of data to tell you you're doing it right, we're going to lose sight of how to drive decision and impact. So quick decision making, don't get paralyzed by the data, and give your teams permission to fail. And I think that's a powerful tool. I think people have to embrace that, because if we wait for everyone to have this big revealing moment, we wait months to talk about a big creative idea and decision making. If that doesn't work, you have such a small window to impact and change. So if we can take one step forward every single day, and hey, you know what? At the end of the day, we learn it doesn't work. Okay, we can pivot and learn and change tomorrow. But if we wait weeks for data to be perfect and creative to be perfect and insights to come in, we are going to lose sight on impact and change. And so giving people that reassurance of we might not know where we're going, but let's just take one step today. And it might not be the right step, but we give ourselves permission to pivot and change. I think the other part of it, and what I do really well and is part of my leadership style, is just quick communication. I don't need a formal meeting. I don't need a big 20-page email. Like, text me, Teams me. Let's just have quick ping pong communication, because the power of speed will allow us to make decisions faster, fail faster, and move forward in a different direction. And I like it because it's also allowing communication to be consistent and driving context. Because the worst thing to do as a leader is push people to run without they don't know where they're going. So communication works when it's effective and it's fast, but with context and clarity.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're giving a lot of autonomy to your team, and they're able to operate. And to your point, if you're going to fail quickly, learn from your mistakes, and then iterate, right?
Exactly. And I think every failure opens up opportunity. And I think if we can reframe that mindset as leaders and giving people that safe space and freedom of, it's not a failure, it's just a new opportunity. It's not a challenge, it's a new opportunity. And I think that really empowers people to think a lot more boundaryless and different. And that's a powerful tool. And you're right. I'm not a person, I'm not a leader where I don't care your title, I don't care your function, you're part of the organization. I want to hear any and all ideas. I think leading with a lot of authenticity and empathy goes a long way on people really opening up and feeling safe to share ideas, because those ideas might be good today, but they'll be great tomorrow if you get the right people around the room.
Yeah, and as marketers, I would imagine you want to encourage that creative thinking, right? You don't want to tamp that down. You want to draw that out, and giving your team members the freedom to think creatively is only going to benefit the brand in the long run.
Absolutely. And I know everyone always says, no idea is bad idea. But I think at the end of the day, the power of starting with one insight, one thought, one idea, by the end of the day, if you can build off of one another, it becomes so huge. it can be a completely different direction, but it opens up something that you never thought possible. And I think that's really powerful.
Great. I want to take the opportunity to thank Kaitlyn Hebert, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at Ninja, for joining us here at Shoptalk, as well as on this episode of Total Retail Talks. Thank you, Kate. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at mytotalretail.com/podcasts for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks.
Optimove, the leader in positionless marketing, empowers marketers to instantly deliver real-time personalization. Boosting campaign efficiency by 88%, it allows marketers to do anything and be everything. Go to optimove.com/totalretail to get your first month free when buying Optimove's positionless marketing platform.